Hello and welcome to the NeuroTechSF Hack Night for November 11, 2021. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, cool. We have a bunch of topics to talk about, which is really exciting tonight. We got some community discussions to have as well. Let's see if the stream has started up. I don't see it on YouTube yet, but give it a moment, see if the software connected. Doesn't look like it. Let's just make sure that multi-streams are enabled. They are. Okay, well. Either it's delayed or we're not getting the YouTube stream tonight. That's all right. We'll just upload the video. It's not usual that this happens, but it has happened once before. All right. Cool. So, no YouTube, just Crowdcast. Let's get started with the discussion. So the first thing is there was a really cool question in Slack, and I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about processing EEG for emotion, which is a really cool topic. I'm super glad that the question got asked. The reason I'm chuckling is that we just went through a pretty lengthy exercise trying to do that, so I thought it might be useful to kind of share our experiences and what we saw. Let's see. And there were some other questions around EEG data as well, although I don't know if we got all of it. Let's see. Amalia had some questions, and Dimitri had some questions. So we'll try to address as many community questions as we had. Also, there was a carryover question about interpreting EEG data. So we have a lot of interest in the same direction. And finally, there was questions around GitHub. And I felt like that was a really good thing to tackle and talk about how to kind of get started with Python, how to get started with GitHub, and how to get started with these tools. I think in the later part, we should have a lot more people join us. And I think we will even potentially have a demo today of some people working on some hardware, which would be wonderful. So it's going to be a good day for conversation. And then if anybody has topics that they would like to see addressed, this is a great time to put them in chat because we can make sure we get to them on today's call. So let's start with the simpler question first, the GitHub question, although it is sort of a lengthy topic. Okay. So I'm going to address this question this answer to Itamar, even though he didn't explicitly ask this question. I know that Itamar is trying to get familiar with GitHub and is trying to get familiar with how to use some of these tools that we're talking about. So let me kind of give you a very brief primer, not so much on how to use GitHub, but actually like to explain that, yeah, this is actually a complex thing. And so there's a couple of challenges that you're going to run into with GitHub, Python, and whatnot. The first is everyone's going to assume you have a Python environment or you know how to create a Python environment. So that's going to be the first stumbling block. And then when people go to do it, do I need Python 2 or do I need Python 3? 32-bit, 64-bit? Do I want to install or do I want... It's surprising how many things you actually need to answer if you're completely unfamiliar with Python. Another thing that people get directed to is a wonderful package called Anaconda. So Anaconda is a unified... Excellent. Yes, absolutely. Anaconda is a unified way to install Python. So if you're looking for the simplest way to get a Python 3 environment, which is almost certainly what you're looking for, if you're not sure what you're looking for, then Python 3 with Anaconda is going to be a good start point. So for anyone who is not familiar with where to get Anaconda, you can go right here, anaconda.com, products, individual. I'll go ahead and share the screen for a moment. Okay. And this is Anaconda. data science toolkit. You're going to see a variety of these, but really you can just start with individual edition. Again, if you know what you're looking for and you're looking for something specific, great. But for anyone who's new, you just go to anaconda.com, products, individual edition, click that. And you're going to see a 500 meg installer, Python 3.8, 64-bit graphical, and this one is for Windows because that's my OS with my browser, but this is available for Mac OS and this is available for Linux. So this is not like a Windows specific tool. So no matter what OS you're running, you can use Anaconda as your Python environment. So go ahead and download this. You're going to get a nice prompt, but this happens after the download prompt. So it's not, you're not hostage to answer this. You can choose or not choose. And it's going to download the file. When you have that downloaded, you're going to install it in your environment, but just running the executable. Now I have Anaconda currently installed and I'd rather not reinstall the whole environment. So I'm going to start the installer, but I'm not actually going to finish it. Oh, and for those who are wondering, different environment, we're doing some recordings this week. So I have the whole setup downstairs with the emoted bit and all that other stuff. Okay, so when you run the setup, you get this prompt. It's recommended you close all other applications, etc. Now, I already have this installed, so it might do something interesting, but this, just me or all users, this might sound counterintuitive, but life is a lot easier if you use the just me portion. Before I was familiar with Anaconda, I was thinking like, okay, yeah, I'll just do the escalation up front, you know, and then it's good to go. No, what this actually means is that you're going to have difficulties with Windows permissions, and trying to get to your Anaconda install location will be much more difficult. So my suggestion, if you're new, install for just me. If you're installing on Windows, I don't think you'll get this prompt on other environments. But yeah, this installs it at the user space and makes life a lot easier. You'll have a destination folder where you want it installed. You can choose that. And here are the two things that I suggest you have enabled, which is add Anaconda to my path and register Anaconda as my default Python 3.8. Now, different tutorials that you're going to see on the internet will have different advice for this. But if I'm directing this at novices who want the most stuff to work with the least amount of confusion, if you check these things up front, you're not going to have, there's less potential problems that you can run into. For power users, maybe these options are going to conflict with things that they want. But for beginners, I think you may as well select both of these and hit next. Now, it's going to complain on my system. You know, here it's like, hey, you've already got one, so I can't register. And here you get this nasty red text where it's like, geez, you shouldn't, you know, this is great and this and that. Again, this warning is for power users. If you're a beginner, this will make your life easier. Don't let the red text scare you. It's just going to make it easier to run your Python from wherever you are. Then hit the install button. And at that point, Anaconda will install on your system. Now, the installation will take a few minutes. And then you'll have a Python environment. Okay, so how do you start Anaconda? Well, in the case of Windows, you hit your start menu and you type Anaconda. Now, if you just type in Windows, it'll filter for that. You can also go through your application list, but let's just Anaconda prompt. Okay, so this is going to open up a Conda window. And now we can do all the Python things we want. One last piece of advice. Now, this is going to be a little bit contradictory to what you read mostly on the internet. So bear with me and understand that this is my suggestion. People disagree with this suggestion. Okay, and that is to the stage. Hi, Morgan. Let me close the screen. Well, I wouldn't say it's easier on Linux. It's just that it's easier to install in the user level permissions, because then you don't have to worry about escalating to admin to do anything on it.
Oh, right.
Hi, Morgan.
Right. Sorry. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
My autofocus catches up. All right. Good.
So I'm presenting my Anaconda spiel, and I was about to give people some sketchy advice, so I'm going to go ahead and give it, and then you can go ahead and disagree with me and give them the good advice, and we'll be at parity.
I wouldn't dare.
No, it's okay. So my only suggestion for complete beginners is most of the Anaconda tutorials you read are going to tell you to create an environment. They're going to tell you make a virtual environment for whatever you're experimenting with, and it's going to make life easier. For 99% of people that are using Conda, that advice is great. If you're an engineer, scientist, developer, and you understand your way around virtual environments and these things aren't confusing to you, then that advice will make your life so much easier. But if you're really new, and you might do something like forget to activate the environment that you installed into the next time that you open Anaconda, that's going to be a surprisingly frustrating thing to troubleshoot, because when you're not in the environment, it's like it just doesn't exist. But when you know this, when you're comfortable with this, it's easy. So the only thing I'll say is, if you feel like you're struggling, if you feel like Conda and Python are completely new to you and at the limits of, and you've never done anything this complex before, then it's fine to just install into your base Conda environment. There might be times where your installation breaks. There might be time where you have to reinstall your Conda or something like that. And for data scientists and people that, are very good at programming in Python and write their own scripts, they're of course going to have dozens of environments on their machine for whatever they do. All right, Morgan, what is your thought on that?
Of course, what you will benefit from by following all those programmers is hopefully having some it's each one is a new sandbox, right? And potentially you've installed things that will still come back to haunt you in a further instance. But I get what you're saying. I mean, I think everybody kind of does it the way you're saying first, to some degree. But the real benefits I mean, there's some real benefits to Anaconda.
Mm-hmm.
Like nothing in the Python world is as clean as we wish it was, or I should say, nothing in the kind of computational Python stack is as is totally managed for you, and certainly we it's I'm interested to catch up with people about EEG notebooks and Moab development, just because I know to some degree this is why poetry is a thing.
Right.
Poetry, the Python software,
Mm-hmm.
Dependencies management package,
Mm-hmm.
um, not that there's anything wrong with poetry
Yeah.
as well. There's nothing wrong with literature. Uh, uh, but yeah, it's like everybody kind of recommends Anaconda because it's really trying to more than others is trying to handle your computational Python stack, right? Or I guess they market it as data science now. I saw the page, flash by, and because we like to hit good good podcasts and like I think Anaconda person was on Lex Friedman is it Friedman? Um, and recently. So check out, uh, you know, it's this. I should pull this up, but it's like, this is a person who's also instrumental in organizing, NumPy, SciPy, uh, um, as well as Anaconda. This is somebody really involved in the whole computational Python stack and Numba, I believe. So for
Oh,
those not familiar, there's a couple of different uh, acceleration packages and projects, both in Python as well as like ones that are wrapped in Python.
mhm.
So Numba um, is a pretty long. Like I want to say like 7 years ago, I think I saw him present on Numba at PyCon, and
Mhm.
um, it's pretty long development. Whereas like newer things like I know Jax is like what the cool kids I think at Google are using.
Mhm.
So there's definitely some other, as well as like the kind of the push to potentially not use Python and switch to something like Julia is again driven by, are there easier ways to do to accelerate uh, um, computational code,
Right.
you know, and again, like that's mostly what we're dealing with, does what pushed the is Google Colab a viable alternative to using? Well, Colab is a platform, right? So like with Google Colab, I mean, somebody tell me if this is correct. Like it's more, you can manage your Python and Colab in different ways. Like
Yeah.
I know. I mean, I was an early user of notebooks.azure.com,
Mhm.
and that really was it was like Anaconda. Behind the scenes, it was
Right.
like Anaconda. And so you know, I guess it really like if Google Colab, is Conda already there?
So people are using Google Colab as basically like a Google hosted Jupyter notebook.
Right.
And you can run the code directly in the VM attached to
But
it. You
you
don't
can
have to set up your own
if
environment.
I mean, I guess the point is that like there's nothing stopping you from pip installing stuff as much as Conda installing stuff, right?
Yeah, so Google Colab is kind of like your environment in the if you don't have a machine or an environment that you can configure to run Python, but you have access to this Google Colab, you can get like 45 minutes. You can get a certain amount of CPU time for
Sure,
free,
sure.
and so you can just do some of these experiments. But it is
It,
a
it, it's orthogonal to the packaging
right,
and package management.
right,
Uh,
exactly,
and again, like notebooks.azure.com uh, is the same thing.
right.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that we created a new forum and Noisebridge for controversial discussions. Like, is Google Colab the same as Azure? Is Vim better than Emacs?
Oh
I don't.
my, these are dangerous
I know.
discussions.
I responded to like that escalated quickly,
I know. Oh my goodness. I didn't
but
think I would see that debate again. It's not over, is it?
well,
It's
somebody was trying to press buttons. I'm pretty sure. But
I can only imagine.
yeah.
I can only
Um,
imagine.
uh,
Wow.
so so since we're talking about this,
Hmm.
and since we've got no or I don't have any preset agenda, uh, I want to talk about a an effort that we started with the Neurika Epilepsy Challenge. So, and we talked about the need, like Google Colab is great, right? In the sense that like, hey, you know, Google's kind of making a service available if you don't push it too hard. Um, uh, but it wasn't like really scalable for Narika Challenge,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially like you'd probably want to you know, Narika is taking it a little bit further in the sense that like you'd probably want real GPU time to train, but uh, but what we talked about was that like, you know, there was a lot of, you know, extra data management and like data munging
An incredible
and
amount.
incredible. I mean, yeah, and that, yeah, that and kind of you know, it would be nice that if you know Neurotech X had in a sense its own Jupyter Lab server, right? That would already have kind of like the data sets attached. Not that, you know, like we don't need, you know, Picone,
Right.
you know,
Joseph
already
Picone.
Joseph Picone and et al. And the people at Temple
Mm-hmm.
are already hosting the data, right? And if they don't have a tool, you can just wget the data, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
you can curl or wget,
Yeah, well,
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and uh, but the main thing is that like you were kind of still getting, let's not say raw data, but it didn't have like channels interpolated, you know. So not all the recordings had the same number of channels.
Right.
Not all the, you know, there were these
This the
inconsistencies.
each one had a different order. So even though all the channels were there, you had to write a script that would sort every recording to be uniform, which like I understand having done collection with multiple protocols, but it's still like, okay, so either I spend months cleaning my data for other people to use, which has no benefit for me, or I don't, in which case I just move on.
And you know, so there were people like so there was cool archive papers though at the time, or you know, bioarchive papers like so I can think of one where Anders Eklund was on the paper,
Mm-hmm.
and he's now a professor in Sweden, Linkoping,
Mm-hmm.
I think. I'm, you know, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. Uh, he's always focused on GPU programming,
Right.
right? So his earliest open source software package was called Broccoli, because he was like, you should eat your greens or something. I forget
Oh
the
no.
I forget, but it was essentially like I'm going to rewrite all of first level fMRI in OpenCL,
Right.
which was pretty, you know, pretty impressive, right? And it was cool. He was at Virginia Tech and he was doing it like um, Steve LeConte, I think, at Virginia Tech is someone who's big on real time fMRI. So, like, you know, have everything in OpenCL so that they can basically have the DICOM stream coming in, and you know, and just get results, right? Um, really impressive stuff. He had a paper available on archive last year around the time Narika time, um, where they were interpolating any bad channels as a part of you know, some it was like pre-processing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. If we're talking about We're talking about Anders Eklund. And if you Google it, add something, because it's also the name of like a serial killer or something. So
Oh, the
be
submarine guy.
be careful with
Oh
your
no.
searches on Anders.
Oh my goodness.
Add GPU.
Holy moly.
But yeah, so you can find he's on, and I missed this as well. There's a brain hack paper out that came out this summer, which is awesome. So let me I forget where they published it. Maybe eLife. Where did it go?
Sure. And Morgan, just
Sure.
to give you the context of what I was sort of at the start of the thing, I was like, hey, we have some people that have been asking questions for the last few weeks about GitHub and getting started with like downloading projects and doing the most basic, like, how do I just get started with GitHub? How do I download and install a project from GitHub? So my first suggestion was, sure.
Well, I was just gonna recommend Kyle has some nice intro discussion, or some nice intro stuff for people.
Oh, wow.
With his sorry, my lighting is still keeps on blowing up my lighting.
You're luminescent and iridescent, Morgan. It's beautiful.
I think it's like I'm sweaty in here because I'm in this small room.
You're gleaming. It's beautiful.
Let me see if a bit of extra light.
I've got the same thing. I'm downstairs. It looks terrible. I look like I'm in an interrogation. It's and I didn't do it. Shining, absolutely.
I definitely so many. I'm just gonna put brain hack into PubMed because everybody involved in this paper are good people to track.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just drop this into Shining. Okay. I can also check that I spelled Anders' name right. Yeah, there he is. And a lot of institutions there. He's down at 41. Yeah, Linköping. And Linköping is in the city of Linköping.
Nice.
I would need to check where that is. I think it's on the west coast, but it's not the city. Well, I'm gonna check now. I'm wondering if it's the city, like, there's the bridge between Denmark and Sweden. Can anybody guess what the city is on the Swedish side of that bridge?
I will have to use Google, which I do think is cheating on some level.
Oh, it's definitely cheating.
So, Idemar guessed Malmo.
Oh, did somebody guess? Okay, I like it.
Okay.
Yes, Malmo. Idemar, good job.
That's beautiful. It is Malmo. Wow, yeah, no, that's legit.
Computer aid. So I was totally wrong. It is on the East Coast. It's actually a little interior, but it's on the East Coast. So, yeah, but Anders has other cool papers you should check out. Real computational guy, and he's got one of those DGX boxes. Oh, okay, you use the ferry. Yeah. Well, hey, I'm so old. I remember when there was a hovercraft from Dover to Calais.
I remember the hovercrafts were a big deal. It was. Wasn't this on Top Gear?
Oh, well, that sounds like they would,
Yeah, they raced the hovercraft in something or other. Yeah.
Yeah, but this was like a hovercraft that carries, like 50 cars.
Yeah. Yeah, the hover ferry. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, it was awesome.
It's neat the technologies that we were exploring in the 70s that we just completely gave up on. Concorde, too expensive. They were doing all kinds of. I remember the leaning train in the UK, and that one, it was supposed to go like faster, but it would make people vomit because of the leaning during G-forces. So they built like a test track of 100 miles, and then once the puking effect was observed in real life, they were like, "That's not working."
High speeds. You know, the high speeds 2, or I forget what they're calling it. But you know, there's going to be new high speeds rail line in the UK, and I think you know, and it's like my old route, because you know my dad lived in Edinburgh, my mom lived in London, so they put me on the sleeper. But this is like, now you're going to be able to go, you know, London to Edinburgh in, I don't know, not as fast as the car. But
all right, so I have one super quick demo that I was going to do on, or sorry, if you have something you'd like to cover, but I was just going to show for 2 minutes how to download Bloomies off GitHub.
Do that, and I'll hopefully find some references for the thing I want to.
Beautiful. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to just share real quick. Here is Bloomies. Okay, so what is Bloomies? Bloomies is the software program that most people use to stream on Windows data from a Muse. So you got one of these, and you want to get your EEG data. This is the first step in collecting data and analyzing it, is using this. Now, for storage, you can use something like EEG notebooks, which is a very cool tool and will take you into Python, and you'll be able to use some of those things. Or if you'd like something a little simpler, there's a binary called Lab Recorder that is available from UC San Diego, where they basically built a Windows binary that you can just install the same way that you install Bloomies. And at that point, you'll be able to subscribe to any LSL streams. And it turns out that Bloomies creates LSL streams. So let's just start with the very, very simple thing of, if I'm new and I want to install, use GitHub, where do I get started? Okay, so this is what a GitHub page looks like. The top right of the project is going to give you a little bit of a description. It's going to have a README, and then there's going to be the license. For the most part, until you get more familiar, this may or may not make a difference to you. But afterwards, when you start looking at, I want to know what license a project is or whatever, this is where you go to get that info. You can also see releases. You can see who's maintaining it. You can see what language it's written in. Now, when you get to the main page, you're going to land on kind of a code. And usually the way that this is laid out is there's a readme.md, and this is going to give you information on the project. Now, one of the things that's good and bad about GitHub is all of this is written, almost every piece of documentation on GitHub is written under the assumption that you know what you're looking for. This is what you're looking for. And you're familiar enough with installing software and packages and so on to kind of get this up and running on your system. Most of these READMEs will start from the assumption that you don't really need to know what this is, except in a very cursory way. You don't really need detailed installation instructions. You don't really need detailed troubleshooting instructions. Now, I think those are mostly assumptions of convenience, but all the same, that's what you're going to see in a lot of these. Bloomies is a little bit of an exception because it's written for, I don't know anything else. I just want a Windows program. I'm just going to install it, and then I want to stream data from the Muse. So in this case, there are screenshots of what it looks like up and running. There is information about the command line interface. But this is the part that is sort of project specific, and this is the part that isn't really going to be there in all cases, but it'll say, hey, download the latest version from the releases page. So you can click on the releases page. Now, in some ways, you have to know that this is here. There is a section up top that tells you that there's going to be installation. But basically, you scroll past the instructions to get here. And then sure enough, this walks you through the installation. So I guess what I'm saying is, as you explore various projects, some of them are going to have more detailed documentation than others. But if there is explicit instructions, it'll be something like this, and it'll tell you, hey, go download here and and run it. So in this case, you would click this file. You're going to get a 150 megabyte zip. And here there are instructions for how to auto install. So in this case, I don't mind reinstalling Bloomies, although I might already have this on my actual desktop, but let's just extract it. Okay, cool. And let's follow the instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and run this as Windows PowerShell admin. Now that's because I know that this is what we want. So if you're not familiar with PowerShell, you can just type PowerShell. And then you have two options. You can either run it or you can run it as administrator. It's easier if you run it as administrator. So first you go to the folder where you installed it. And then you go to the actual Bloomies folder, and you'll see here there's an instruction to run this. So let's just paste that in. And it's going to ask us if we want to install a certificate. I said yes. This is that instruction and documentation too. The app is going to install. And now, if you type Bloomies, because this is a Windows application, you will launch the Bloomies application. And right here, you can see the version number, and this is set to version 2.2. And it is now searching for muses, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this one on. And sure enough, this shows up. So status is online. Is it streaming? No, it's not. So we're going to hit start streaming. And that makes this window pop up. And it shows you that we're streaming the EEG data, the accelerometer, and the gyroscope. So we've got all three data sources. This is a Muse 2016, so it doesn't have the PPG sensors that your new fancy Muse 2s may have. And this is pretty much it. Now you've got EEG data off of a Muse with the following steps. Go to GitHub, download the package, install it, purchase a Muse, and turn it on when Bloomies is installed and start the streaming. Okay, so the last thing I'll show is just sort of like when a project doesn't have an explicit installer, you can just go to code. There's this green button right here, and this is what you're going to do for most projects on GitHub. Like if you want, this is the workflow that you're going to use 99% of the time. So you go to the page, you go to code, you're going to get a few options, HTTPS, SSH, CLI. You can open with desktop, but the easiest one is download zip. So you're going to click download zip. Now you've got, now this is, in this case, this is the source code repo. This isn't the compiled binary. In other words, if a GitHub project has both the source and also the developer has run the source through the compiler to give you a finished binary for a given platform, this is going to be the method that typically gets you the source. So you go ahead and save. It's going to download the master. The last thing I'll mention is if you have a specific file that you're looking for, sometimes it will open, but you're trying to save it. And this is a little bit confusing because there isn't like a download button. This is the last of the tips that I have for GitHub. If you're trying to download an individual file, if you right click on the word raw and hit save link as, you'll get the file, whatever it is. So if you're looking for an easy way to save the contents of a file that you're looking at and that is convenient, I mean, there's these buttons here, but really you're going to right click, save link as. Now there's a lot of websites that intentionally break right click save as, and so people have kind of gotten out of the habit of using it, but it works. It's the correct way to download a specific file from GitHub. Okay, that's it for my very brief GitHub tutorial. By the way, do you have a link to Kyle's
Yeah.
tutorials? Because I'm sure, I have a feeling Kyle is very thorough in covering the GitHub stuff.
I mean, it's pretty it's pretty bare bones, but you know, let me see what's there now, because I haven't been to his website, or you know, his but let's just say who we're talking about, because I haven't
Yes.
seen him in a long time, and we missed that crazy guy. Here he is, and out in the outback, or sorry, what do the Canadians call? Well, he enjoys where he lives in Edmonton, and is out there uh, uh, skiing to work, um, but and is also the person who I think did the largest Muse, like interactive Muse class, right? Because he had like what, 50 students in his Muse. Um, uh, did some really cool stuff with EEG notebooks, and so I'm now just trying to remember. Is it Kyle? It's Kyle Math, maybe. Oh well, this is definitely the better page for him, in the sense that like you get to see that bike backpack. Um, uh, yeah. Okay.
That bike backpack is cool.
Um, it's from whole code. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, is
I
that one of
mean,
those combo unicorn?
I don't. I don't think. I mean, my guess is that it's you know, so not a lot of people know that you can. It's quite easy to make a biosemi into a battery powered system, and
The,
but I could be wrong.
have you seen the?
Because I mean, like he's wearing a backpack for a reason, right?
Oh yeah.
You know, so I'm just thinking. Although I got to say, the wires look a lot better than a biosemi uses ribbon cables.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, uh, yeah, we need to get that guy back. Um, anyway, uh, for most things. So sorry, what were you guys downloading, or what were you playing with
So
on GitHub?
here's the thing I was wondering about. Have you seen this device from Gtech? It's called the Gamma Cap FNIRS, and they're basically trying to match kernel flow. So in the same sense that
Well,
you can
they're
have
not
a,
going to manage kernel flow.
well, I'm not. This is
Yeah,
what they're positioning. I'm not. I
sure,
have no
sure.
claims to make. This is just a device that they're selling. So it's like this. They call it the G Nautilus, and I guess you can get like 8 FNIRS. Anyway, I don't think this is it, but it just looks really similar. So I was wondering if it was a combo, because
Uh,
you can see that the two different
oh,
sensors.
oh, okay. Yeah, let me go to Gtech. I mean, you know, Gtech is a great company, and uh, it, it would be one of those where it's like, really, was it founded by Steve Glassner? Am I on the right page? Oh, there's another Gtech. Okay.
Gtech.at.
Yeah, I went to gtech.com.
Ah,
I was like, It wasn't founded by Steve Glassinger.
No, I believe an Austrian person was involved.
Yeah, yeah. And all right. And I mean, they are both G's, but it's Googer, right? I will see. FNIRS. FNIRS. Okay. FNIRS sensors. And it's actually great to come on this page because Gtech will regularly host their own brain hack event, if you will, right?
Yes.
They're called Brain. They spelt with a 4 as the A,
Right.
and yeah, and there's usually like sometimes like 2 or even 3 a year. And they, splitting them between North America. I mean, I think the idea is to have them on, every continent, meaning Europe, North America, Asia.
Right.
But
this for a second.
the, COVID is, it would be good to see what they're doing. Yeah, so it's Brain, and then the I is a 1.io. So let me just drop this in because all these links are included.
Okay, so the last of the GitHub specific things that I wanted to mention is Lab Recorder. So this is the package that several people that have talked in Slack and joined the Hack Night as well have recently purchased crowns, Neurosity crowns. So if you go to console.neurosity.co.
Hey, Alex.
Yo, sorry.
What's a Neurosity crown?
Oh, that's the new EEG.
So that's different than my notion.
Yes, they put Datweiler active electrode, the polymer ones, instead of whatever they're using there, and it's a big improvement in sort of fit and signal quality.
You get frozen in carbonite for a few months, and everybody does cool stuff.
Yeah. So the crown is kind of like the Notion 3, but because it's a completely new sensor and it's soft rubber instead of the hard, I think the other ones were gold or something.
You mean on this thing?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, it's actually the same. Is it the same electrodes?
No. I'm not going to speak until I.
Yeah, I don't think it is. I think it's different. So.
Until I read, but.
These are the electrodes that they are using for the crown. So
Go ahead.
So just on terms of Lab Recorder, I'll just show you this real quick. This is for anybody who wants to just record EEG data from Bloomies, Crown, it doesn't matter, Neurosity device. If you can get an LSL stream, which a lot of them will let you do, this is pretty much it. You go to the GitHub page, you go to Lab Recorder, and you go to latest releases. And so you're going to see a few zip files, and you're going to grab Lab Recorder 1.14.2. I mean, in this case, 1.14 is the last major release. You can either grab AMD 64 if you've got a 64-bit, or if you're not sure, you can get the i386. I generally do everything in LSL in 64-bit. Go ahead and save the file. If you extract it, you're going to get the prompt right here. So we're going to go to desktop, and we're going to pop it in there. And yes, my desktop is cluttered. Why do you ask? Lab Recorder. And here we go, labrecorder.exe. So here we go. Allow access, and we are lab recording. So if I hit update, you'll see that my Crown stream is available. Now, in here, you have a couple of options. You can either select all to record all streams, but the Crown 140 stream will tend to be blank unless you're generating markers events. The reason I bring this up is that Lab Recorder records in this format called XDF. And one of the things that we've run into with the common XDF to CSV conversion packages is they get a little unhappy if a stream is blank. So they will tend to throw an error and refuse to process. And if you're a developer, it's not hard to figure out why the script is unhappy about a blank stream. It's trying to get a sense of the sample rate. It's trying to read a few packets in and figure out what it is. But if there's no packets to read, then it blows up. So you can disable that functionality if you're a developer. But let's say you don't know anything about programming and you just want to get some data. In that case, just select the EEG. Right? So you're only going to select the main feed. You don't want the markers. You're going to choose the study stuff. I wouldn't mess with, but you're welcome to if you would like. And just start and stop are the main buttons you're looking for. All this other stuff is very confusing, but you select the stream you want, you hit start. It's going to go ahead and record. You hit stop. Right here, you can see in the console, everything is done. You can now browse, and this should be under Documents, Current Study. So let's, anyway, your file will be under Documents, Current Study, and that's where you go to access the XDF. And there will be one additional step for most people, which is you're going to need a package to convert from XDF to CSV. But still, even if you go as far as getting to the XDF and get stuck, you've still recorded your data. And if you get on the Slack and say, hey, I need help converting an XDF into CSV, or I need help parsing an XDF, I think you'll get a response. So just we've talked about Lab Recorder here for the past year or two, but we never actually showed, okay, here's how you download Lab Recorder, here's how you install it, here's how you run it. Okay, that's it.
I am just, okay. So that's awesome. I dropped a few more things in, and so I'm still waiting. I don't recognize everybody from the from their short names necessarily, but I'm just checking to see if either of the people from Reddit TDCS have joined us. Well, there's it depends on what you want, really, but I'm gonna let Alex field that question.
The Neurosity console does let you record the data. If you want to record data without streaming to Neurosity, like by using local mode so that their servers never see your data, then Lab Recorder lets you maintain complete control. Then the only person who ever gets your data streams is you. If you're uploading data to the Neurosity portal, then it's very convenient to simply use the console. Let's pull that up real quick, and I'll share the screen. To manage recordings, and this is how a lot of folks do it. So let's see. I think I'm in local mode, which probably won't let me do this. Expecting that it's going to be blank. Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with using the portal to record your sessions. So there's if you don't have local mode enabled, lab streaming layers is what I use for local mode. But there's a way you can just record stuff in the portal. Now there is one quirk that is still in progress. When you download files from the Neurosity portal, they're just data with no column headers. Just about every EEG package wants headers, so you're gonna need to paste something, probably most of the time, into your script, or you're gonna have to have a pipeline that just understands that it's data and knows what's in what column. The other thing is that the portal does insert one blank column in column I. So there's a little bit of pre-processing that you need to do usually to take a file that you download from the portal. Now, we are going to open a feature request with Neurosity, and I think they are going to update that so that when people save stuff on the portal, basically it's in a format that's consistent with like how EEG files would be structured. But yeah, you'll just need to modify the files from the portal, which are CSV, super easy. You just open them up and make the changes. But you'll have that additional step. With Lab Recorder, the additional step is getting the data out of XDF and into CSV. However, let me skip to there's this thing called XDF export tool. This is what we use. No, this is not.
Better than CSV.
There is XDF. Okay, here we go. PyXDF. That's what. Now, okay, so PyXDF is just a general purpose library, which is here. But you can use this to load an XDF into pandas or whatever, right? You'll be able to parse an XDF directly through Python. So that's what PyXDF lets you do. There is one more package that we found. Let's see, GitHub. I think it's called. I guess it's just this export tool. And this is the graphical one. So I think we made a stripped down version of it. But here's the graphical one, XDF export tool. And so with this, you'll be able to export from XDF to CSV. But these are the tools that we ran into issues with, like blank files, and they'll tend to just, crash. So if you have blank streams, the easiest fix a lot of the time is to just turn off whatever the blank stream is. Don't select it from your lab recorder.
Great. Well, and it's yeah, we can do better than CSV. It would be nice to think, and but again, I'm curious to catch up on EEG notebooks and what they hope to do, and how well. Anyway, but I get that from like a Muse, it seems like a higher bar to go for EDF or some sort of proper bids compatible. I mean, again, like bids gives you four different options, which it shouldn't.
Morgan, you bring up an excellent point. If you're not sure how to structure your data, bids is a good starting point. And
yeah. Even if they seem to have totally punted on what file formats, what raw data file formats are allowed,
mm-hmm.
You have lots of choices, and it's leaving it very open for you to be using all the different like major toolbox. I mean, it's Field Trip, EEG Lab, M&E. Should I include anything else in there to be diplomatic? Those are the big SPM. Well, SPM handles a lot of other things. I mean, SPM will handle what the EEG toolbox is handling, right? Because it wasn't originally a EEG tool, even though it's still the best thing you should be processing your data with. But that's for dynamic causal models. So yeah, if what we should do is convert the Temple University Hospital data set into BIDS compatible data.
Mm-hmm.
Like, great point. So I wanted, okay, so just to double check that there's nobody here that's joining us for the first time from Reddit, and I think it's because I just checked, and because I don't check
These
Reddit,
folks are all familiar.
okay. And
Kritarth just bought a crown. He was demoing it 2 weeks ago. He's here in the Bay. He's local. He hasn't attended any of our in-person hack nights because he's new and we have been washed out by the pandemic. But
sure.
he's got a crown. He's super excited. He's a developer. By the way, it's incredibly rude of me to sort of speak about you without offering the chance. So if you'd like to come up and tell us about, how things have been with the crown or whatever, I would love to hear about it. But of course, if you're here to just watch, no problem, yeah.
Yeah, but super happy to try and do something at Noisebridge,
Mm-hmm.
which would be our currently available space. And great. Okay. So,
and JM has been attending for the past few months. Now, I believe you're a student, but I don't remember where you're studying, JM. And if that's inaccurate, I'm so sorry about this. Morgan would remember. He has got this amazing memory for people and places and labs and so on. I'm the opposite of that. Oh, there we go. A software developer for NBC. He's done studying. He's on his way to master.
That's super cool. That's super cool. It's interesting to me. I'm just seeing now that a number of media organizations, not saying that you are, Jim, but a number of media organizations have like research, innovation labs or kind of like development labs. So
oh yeah, that's
BBC. I guess shouldn't surprise anybody, but the BBC has a development lab.
Well, actually, I'm familiar with this ecosystem, but please.
Well, New York Times has a lab,
Mm-hmm.
and it's super relevant because one of the things that they were doing was photogrammetry, right? So really relevant if you want to capture quickly positional, electrode position information, and capture that, with hopefully a good head model too, and so like the show Devs. Okay. As I remember, Devs is working on some sort of quantum computer or something. Doesn't Devs get kind of dark, or like how
well,
far
I think
along?
so when I ran across this company a while back, I was really blown away. Spark Neuro, I think, has done more to promote neuromarketing for media companies than I can think of any other organization. And the reason is they're incredibly well connected. So almost like in a inverse of the Theranos, where they use their connections to sort of do cheesy stuff. Spark Neuro somehow had these incredible business like Michael Eisner, the former chairman of Disney, is an investor. Will Smith, the actor, is an investor. So they took a 15. Sorry.
Well, so I mean, I immediately see that they've got multiple, like not spin-offs, but they're heading more than just marketing, right? Because they've got a Spark Defense, yeah. But cognitive dominance of the battlefield.
Yes. So we'll just start with the neuro one because that one I'm familiar with. This is amazing. I didn't know that so these guys are rolling in money because when they did the 15 million Series A on a 65 mil valuation, they were already cash flow positive.
Wow.
As in they were net profitable. And that is so rare, but they have the craziest business model. Okay, get this.
What are they thinking?
So here's the deal. This is incredible. So let's say you're going to buy a $3 million Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah.
That's a 30-second ad. And the cost isn't in producing the commercials. The cost is the airtime. So you need to make sure that the commercial you're going to air is the single most impactful. So these companies are paying a lot of money, and they're paying it per 30-second thing. You know how many 30-second commercials these companies produce? And these folks are getting paid for all of them. So they've got like a movie theater set up. And basically you come in, they put a emotive on your head, they sit you in a recliner, you watch some TV, they give you like $100 gift card, and they charge the company like a whole lot of money to get like your metrics back. And then the company decides which commercial to run, which slot, which audience to target. And same with movies. If you've got a $30 million movie, you want to know if some edits. So I think in this case, what is so remarkable about this, I don't mean to like harp about it like it's a bad thing, is somebody found a way to make neuroscience and the relationship between money super clear. Like you're not guessing what's the validity. You can see that for the same ad buys that you're already spending, you're getting more consumer response. That actually means that this is not a loss. This is a profit. And I just think that these kinds of businesses are amazing. So as a result, yeah.
I mean, because this is not a new game, right? I mean, and like this has a deep history in the advertising industry,
right.
Of how
metrics, yeah.
How do we get? I mean, every angle, right? Just because, as we know from Google, the advertising, business or
ecosystem,
the dollars, the dollars are crazy, right? And it's even more interesting when you realize that there's a lot of faith in this industry, in the sense that like we're hoping that this turns into more sales or things like that, and that's the bit that neuroscience can't tell you, right? Like what we're trying to give them is a better metric of engagement, and a better sense of if Nielsen boxes also have a camera, right? How much information do they really get from the camera? Now, what they kind of want to know is that like there's actually somebody there watching, right? So it at worst, like the camera's saying like, yeah, the TV's not just running, which was an issue for Nielsen. I don't know, maybe back in the 80s or 90s or something, but they want to say, and this is why when you saw like Microsoft Cognitive Services, I think, and just to pick a name,
right?
But Microsoft Cognitive Services wasn't the only one, but that one of the features, can I get my air quotes? One of the features was being able to get emotion detection from the face, right?
It's funny because that's actually a topic for tonight too. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. It is, and we've brought this up before for sure, and it won't be the last time, because a lot of times when I'm criticizing something, it's also because I'm trying to do it.
Right.
right? So it's not that I'm not trying. It's not that I don't want this to happen, or that I think it's wrong. It's just that it's like, uh, is the technology working,
I find that
and
really funny because I
and
have the same experience.
is it vetted? I mean, in the sense that like you know, I see someone hawking Microsoft Cognitive Services or IBM. Let's throw IBM in there too. So it's not just picking on one company. Um, IBM doing the same thing, because I remember talking to some IBM fellow who was ambassador, who was
Mhm.
pitching their uh, pitching their emotion detection. I think he'd taken the prime minister of a nation state's address to the public
Right,
and run it through IBM
right,
emotion detection from
right,
video,
right.
and and was showing perhaps the mismatch between the text
Oh,
and what cognitive services was saying was potentially deception, or certainly um, not what the speech was emphasizing. And I said, well, that's cool. So what are you know name one paper that's based on,
right,
like,
right,
you know and I think I found a better way to say it than that, but essentially it was, hey, honestly, until you put people through those emotions somehow,
right, right,
right? Like, don't don't say that's what you're doing, right?
right,
Say you're doing some sort of eigenface clustering,
right,
or you
right,
know like
right,
right
right, right, right. Some
like
some class, some categorization, right?
yeah,
But you're
name
not right,
name the algorithm. I mean, we had this discussion with schizophrenia
right,
rats, rodents, right?
right,
It's like, no, no. Like, you know why don't you just say which genes you are selecting for, or
right, right.
making
Instead
sure
of
that they're expressing. Like, let's not, it's
mhm,
not schizophrenia like.
it's a
It's
specific gene,
these things, right? And maybe there's some associated white matter deficit that people
right,
have also found in schizophrenia, something like that. But, like,
right,
you know
right.
connecting these to, like, I can see happy, or like, joy. I forget. It's like the seven. I now I remember, because they had seven, and I was
Emotions,
like,
right?
and I
Yeah,
did something about, like, the seven dwarves. I was like, oh, like sleepy and dopey.
yeah. Oh, okay. So this is fascinating, Morgan. You and I are in the same wavelength because this was actually a topic in Slack, and I wanted to dive into it. And I totally agree. The only other thing I'll say is I completely understand about the experience of, if you dig into something and you see how they're doing it, and then I have all these criticisms, and I'm like, man, but I sound like such a crank. Like, all I do is complain about what other people are doing, and it's like, no, no, no. I'm not like criticizing it because I want you to think it's awful. I'm criticizing it because there's so much more room for improvement, and hopefully we will go in that direction.
And
Yeah.
I want it to work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly.
I mean, this is, I mean, this comes up when when I'm saying the same thing about NLP, right? Or NLU, or whatever you want to call it, right?
Right.
It's like, if we want to replace a psychiatrist with a Raspberry Pi,
Right.
we don't just want speech to text
Right.
conversion,
Right.
but we want to get nuances from the
Mm-hmm.
language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not, I'm not trying to diminish what the psychiatrist is doing,
Right.
right? It's like, I want to capture the expert,
Yeah. Yeah. The nuance. Mm-hmm.
like, to go back to the old, like, the 80s, like, we called these expert systems for a reason,
Right.
right? like we that was what the point was, you know. And it, you know, if you're not trying to make your system an expert, then what exactly are you trying to make it? Like
Exactly.
a dumb system? You know, like, you
It's
know,
it's a mediocre system. It
right,
might be as good as
so, you know, again, like we're trying to replace a psychiatrist with a Raspberry Pi because there are, you know, 100 million to a billion people more than we have, you know, available with the existing, you know, current cohort of psychiatrists, right?
Mhm.
And so we need to push on all these technologies, right? And so
Mhm.
getting emotion and nuance from language, right, is pushing that community to, you know, further, you know, to really develop its to push in new directions and to create, hopefully for us to see the need to create the kind of baseline data sets that they need, right?
Yes.
So how do we
Okay, that's another good topic for tonight.
right, like how do we get people where it's
Mhm.
like, I know you're experiencing that emotion at the time,
Okay,
right?
this is great. All right, so
And
let me.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I'll just show real quick the video from Spark Neuro. So if you want to see how it works, see you come in to this market research place. I guess this is the scene from the show. Okay, so here is what's happening. Science is always done with a clipboard. These are things you have to understand. Um,
Yeah,
Right. We're doing market research. We're looking at the eye. Okay, where they used to have these. Right. Here we go. See, every media company. Okay, here we go. So here's our emotive with webcam as it was on TV thing. And just the fact that this was on ABC a few years ago tells you like the level of media connection, because most BCI projects and most BCI startups are not on ABC. And yeah, so here you've got the eye tracking. You've got the same thing, politician speech. You can imagine that
right.
being able
But
to right. Sorry, go ahead.
well, I mean, it's like we don't, I mean, these are things that a person does
Mm-hmm.
when they're seeing new pictures. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we don't
I
actually
agree.
care about, you know, I mean, the eye tracking here is not, you
Oh
know, again,
yes. No,
they're
they're
trying
trying to
to
be fancy.
look,
Most of the stuff I think they do with the EEG. Um, they had. I'm
no,
gonna
it
slip.
makes sense. It makes sense, right? So it creates this, I mean, this came up when, um, not Mark Desposito,
Here
who's
it is.
the great neuro lab, and by neuro I mean, like, you know, invasive recordings over in Berkeley.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
You know, he's the PI over there, and anyway, I mean,
Bob Knight.
yeah,
Okay.
thank you, yeah, and uh, you know, this came up when Brendan was speaking over there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about his work with locked in patients, coma patients, um, and it's pretty easy to go from that and go from those questions about, like, what's the consciousness level, and
Mm-hmm.
especially what is the person's potential ability to consent to medical procedures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what, you know, that's kind of what it all came down to with some of these coma patients or locked in patients, right?
Right.
And Bob brought up lie detection, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at least with lie detection, and he said, you know, you can do a great demo with a deck of cards, you know, and with like, you know, with like four cards, you know, or or certainly like limiting that, and then being like, again, person's wearing a simple EEG device,
Hmm.
and they're like, is that your card, right?
Right.
And that, like, P300, it's so then it's like it's kind of down to your ability to do single trial P300 detection, right?
Right.
And he was like, hey, it was a pretty good boardroom demo that can get you further. This kind of engagement, I think, is much harder.
Yes. And let me,
As well as, like, what do you like, you could focus on a number of different things, but
it's
go ahead.
this that seems like is their core product, which is they've turned this into a metric. So they've abstracted whatever it is that they're classifying based on. So you don't, this could be like some mix of alpha, theta, gamma, or something, right, on the back end, but you don't know that. All you see is this 0 to 1 metric, and I guess because 1 is a small number, let's make it 0 to 10. Now, this is kind of interesting because I think this goes to the core of the difference between the way maybe I see it, and I would think that you would be included in this, but I don't mean to speak for you, versus like how a marketer sees it. If I'm a marketer, I don't want to understand the neuroscience. I just want to understand how effective is my ad, right? I want this finished metric that removes I almost want an expert metric that is giving me an expert answer, and all I have to do is trust the metric, and I'll understand something universal about how people experience my content. On some level, I think this shows a clear understanding of your market, because that's what your customers want and need. I think I would say that it's a little dubious whether every person that is going through your thing, whether this accurately captures their attention or whether it might be measuring something else. And I think this really goes to this: if you work with EEG long enough, and Morgan, feel free to clarify, update, whatever. My experience has been that that you sort of get familiar with how EEG works. And how it works is it helps you distinguish between two states. But it's hard to know exactly what you're distinguishing. Like, you know that these are two different things, and you know that you can measure the difference and you could classify the state. But let's use an example from the spicy challenge. We know that when I'm not having spicy food on the baseline, nothing much changes. And we know that when I do have spicy food, the beta goes up, the gamma goes up pretty significantly. So could we classify the difference between those two states? Yes. If we wrote an EEG classifier, and the classifier was trying to say, is Alex consuming spicy food? Then most of the time it would say no. But then if it saw that sudden onset that is like representative of me having a spicy event, it would say, oh, Alex is eating spicy food. And that's it. That's all it really understands. But it could be that the response to the spicy food could be induced some other way. And if that happened, then the classifier would say, oh, you're eating spicy food, except I'm not. And I'll give you a real world example of this because I found it pretty funny. When I was looking at the Muse stuff a few years ago, I was looking on like their forums for like the user feedback and whether people were using it and if they thought that it was helping them and so on. And I saw the funniest complaint, which was, I found it humorous. A lady that had been doing meditation for a while and was getting the birds to chirp successfully, but as a test run decided to try it while driving and was very frustrated that she was also getting the birds chirping. Now, what's funny about that to me is that driving kind of induces a meditative state and a little bit of a trance and so on. So actually, I think she was capturing the same thing, which is you can induce a meditative state either way. But to that person, it didn't seem credible because they were in a different setting, right? They weren't at home meditating. They were driving their car. They were wide awake. Why is the algorithm matching on the same thing? So I hope that that kind of like summarizes what I mean by saying like it captures signal, but you don't always know if that what that signal is representing, and you can generate very similar signals with different stimuli. So when you're distinguishing between two things that you know, EEG is great for giving you that texture. Like in the case of the, you know, I'm showing you a card, I know whether it's your card or not, and I want to see the difference between telling the truth and lying. That's cool. But if you remove the cards and you keep that method, you say, I'm going to just know whether you're lying or telling the truth, it really starts to break down a little bit. Okay, that's my spiel for the attention and why it's a little off.
There are a lot of well, there's a lot of things I would love to see done with these measures. I want to also say for those, you know, if you haven't, please sign up with NeuroTechX's. Please sign up with NeuroTechX because on Slack there's a, I think I posted it, but there's a new opportunity with Toby, and you know, Toby's the kind of group that in particular cares about this kind of stuff. Like anybody who's doing collection of, you know, eye tracking, GSR, you know, high res, you know, behavioral of various sorts, face as well, you know, if for nothing else, like we could also be using, I mean, we could be using face tracking in useful ways
Yeah.
For artifact detection, right? And for artifact detection and removal, right? You know, like you know, I'm doing this now where I'm blinking. You know, blinks are easy, but it's you know, if we can leverage things that are in the camera as opposed to doing things you know, offline or you know, then that's really helpful. Worst case, it just marks something in one of the kind of event records, which is again why we should be using something other than CSV. But and you know, that
No,
would
you
give
just have
us
27 concurrent CSV streams, one for markers, one for metadata, one for data, and it's not confusing at all.
sure we too can create something as useful as Daikon.
As horrific.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of good stuff. You know, we're trying, or you know, a big part of EEG notebooks is to, you know, create, you know, leverage consumer devices, but then to get them to do cool cognitive neuroscience researchy things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have thought about, like, you know, just for some reason Pygaze was on the front page of Hacker News.
Right.
I want to say I don't I don't know what got it there, but it's a great project, and it was again one of the things that he actually started with. I mean, even though he's like a real eye tracking, you know, research grade eye tracking expert.
Mm-hmm.
As I remember it, this project started as, what can I get out of my webcam? You know, and you know, I mean, he's obviously a brilliant guy, but you know, and he could get a lot more out of the webcam than he thought he could.
I'm going to show Ryan's footage of the trailers while you talk. This is, I asked Ryan for permission to show these. We collected this 3 years ago. This is back in 2018. It's pretty wild. So you can see with NeuroTechSF, we've been here for a while. But yeah, this for this demo, we were trying out some fancy EEG hardware. We got the eye tracker working. and we wanted to see how someone like navigates YouTube, watches trailers, and so on. So the request was, hey, let's find something you find interesting, because why don't we show, kind of the equivalent. So first thing is pupil size in millimeters will give you kind of a rough idea of how hard their brain is working to process. And then these fixations are really where time values come in. So you see here that Ryan's fixations on this particular screen are usually about a half second or less. And what that means is that as he's looking through these elements, like he'll spend half a second looking on this tile of Logan Paul and whoever else he was going to fight at that time. And the way you see that is because while his eyes are on there, this is incrementing. And then as his eyes move off to the next tile, you're going to see the counter stop. So in terms of, so this is how marketers gauge interest, which is basically linger time. I find this very simplistic, but I'm just putting that out there, which is, this is it. This is what marketers use to determine. So if I showed you 3 products, right? And if you did this kind of thing where it's like, okay, all 3 are the same, then I'm like, yeah, none of these are interesting to you. But if I see a sudden spike on one of these, like here, I don't think that was fully accurate because I think it was looking over whatever. But let's see if we find one where, okay. So the Fortnite Battle Royale might have been a little more interesting. Squids, all right, that's another 600 millisecond. Today's funniest clips, right? These all seem like they're kind of uninteresting. Late Show, Stephen Colbert. I think this is more looking around than necessarily interest. Reading is slower than browsing a tile. And these are the observations we can see. Okay, hot new trailers. Here we go. So we're starting to get to movies, which I think is the type of thing that Ryan's looking at. Okay, popular by YouTube. Anyway, so with this kind of breakdown, you can see the details. Let's go to where we start with the trailers. Okay, so here you can also see like what part of the trailer is interesting to someone. So it's kind of neat. You can also see that starting a trailer is way more interesting than browsing on YouTube. Like the eyes start to go up. And then it's kind of cool. Like, oh, people in motion grab your eye. And that's really, so the way that these people pop in like this means that on a static screen, your eye is just immediately going to be drawn to it. Some of these storytelling techniques kind of, with an eye tracker, gain a visceral element. Like, I might question the stylistic choice of why did they have to teleport in, but if I see this in an eye tracker, I kind of get it, which is, if you're trying to draw the viewer's attention and you want to guarantee that they understand that this is what's important, this is a good way to do it. Everything else is static. You have one thing that's moving, pop, your eye just gets drawn there. And again, okay, so now you have movement, right? You have these faces in the tower. Some of them are hard to see, but where do the eyes land? On the first face that is kind of like most prominent center of the frame. And this is a standard eye pattern that people have. When a person sees another person, the eyes make contact. And then it kind of goes on the nose and the mouth, and then it scans the face. So there's a very specific pattern, and this is true for animals, this is true for people. There's actually published papers on this. Really neat. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you ahead of time who was interesting within this crowd. But, I can tell you that for Ryan, it was, well, this was the first thing, and then over here on the left, and didn't look at these people on the right, and is looking at some objects. So this is kind of cool. Like, if you're trying to understand like which characters are resonating with the audience, I mean, you can infer from what people look at what they consider more salient. Sorry, go ahead, Morgan.
No, I was just gonna say, let's, like, the studios have been using eye tracking for a really long time. I mean, if I don't know if there's any other industry that has probably been using or cares more,
right,
and has money than advertising and entertainment. Yeah. And in some ways those are the same.
We're selling stories either way.
Yeah. just and because this comes up in Kahneman and Tversky's work.
Oh, thinking fast and slow, right?
But yeah, I mean, certainly, yeah. I want to say that was that just Kahneman? But 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 that was a popularization of a body, decades of work that Mechanical Turk are interested in making those same people have a webcam. And again, like Nielsen, they want to know how much can we get from a camera
Mm-hmm.
about your behavior. Now, in the case of Amazon, um, what are some of the Upwork and Fiverr and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
these job you know job distribution networks, right? Uh, there's a similar kind of trend. I mean, not trend, like requirement. Like, hey, we if you want to bill hours, then turn on a webcam.
Right.
You know, and there. So anyway, the cognitive neuroscience researchers are getting the benefit of these, trillion-dollar corporations
Absolutely.
wanting to get all this information from cameras, right? And as well as miniaturization and things I don't need to explain to techie crowd, but uh, yeah, we can't like it's not just position. uh, uh, you know, pupil dilation is also, uh, and we've talked about this because you've put me on to references about the neurotransmitter systems directly responsible for pupil dilation,
Right.
and potentially because this comes up with noise bridge crowd and other, I don't want to say quantified self, but other kind of like biohacking community. If you are interested in recording yourself on various pharmacological challenges, um, there are some that are legal and and will have specific um, will have specific effects that that don't have to be euphoric
Right.
for them to be of great interest to to physiological psychologists, let's say, or when we're looking for these connections between uh, um, you know neurotransmitters and behavior, or autonomic control and behaviors that are built on top of autonomic control systems, right? So you've got all these saccades that you're not thinking about, um, uh, or microsaccades, or et cetera. Yeah. Anyway, there's
It's
good stuff in going to higher speed cameras
right.
and getting like even better, more accurate pupil dilation and yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yes, in terms of I'm very excited to see the experiments that people do with those things, and the effects are going to be different on different sensors. Absolutely. So, is it cool if we dive into the emotion EEG stuff for a bit?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, yeah. Is it cool if we talk about that topic for a bit? Because that's sort of what I had lined up. I don't see.
Anybody? Oh well, somebody else has joined us. I think that's Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan is a
another regular.
Leo. I haven't seen before, and Zahir I haven't seen before.
And you know, because it's Reddit, I have no idea what people's. I mean, you know,
We'll see if anyone shows by
I
9.
know, yeah, yeah. I'm Ijin Wolf on Reddit, so I don't actually care if people know that, but there's no
Nice.
way that they can connect that to my name.
That's
I don't.
pretty
I don't
cool. So there was a question on Slack, and from Marwan, it says, "Hello, I'm a beginner in BCIs. I'd like to buy one to be able to determine the emotional and mental state of the user, happiness, sadness, fear, attention, engagement, and feed this information in real time to a video game. I'm looking for affordable BCI. The main ones I've found are Muse, Emotive, and OpenBCI, but there's a subscription required for Muse and Emotive. Which one's best? Are there other headbands that can do the job, etc.?" The reason I bring this one up is I've seen this question come up on Slack for 2 or 3 times over the past 6 months. It's not a huge rate of questions, but we don't get a huge rate of questions on Slack. So I'd say that's like a third of the things that people ask about. So I'd like to Morgan's really good at this. Crush the initial idea and redirect in a different way, which is to say, if your first experiment to explore EEG is going to be collecting it, doing a Fourier decomposition, getting the frequency data, classifying that frequency data, and mapping it to something, such as emotional states or whatever else you want to map it to, you're creating a very difficult challenge for yourself. I don't mean this to discourage anyone. It's just that having recently helped someone through this process, I can give you a time estimate of roughly 3 months. Now, that's not to say that if you work on it continuously, it's going to take you 3 months. But probably if you work on it in your spare time, a few hours a week, and have to get familiar with what EEG is, and you have to get familiar with how to do the data processing and so on, it's going to take a little while. And the reason is there's a lot of hidden complexity with EEG. Morgan said something incredibly important earlier, which was talking about artifacts and blink artifacts in particular. So my suggestion for anybody who is starting their very first EEG project is start with artifacts. Now, why artifacts? Well, artifacts can be found in raw EEG. What that means is if you're collecting EEG off of the device, you don't have to do anything to it to find artifacts. The reason that's important is because raw EEG does not have difficulties with time components. It is in time. So when you're trying to understand raw EEG data, it's very easy to understand. It's just a time series. It represents electricity, and you can find patterns that match what you're looking for. Yeah, Don, please.
So sorry. I was going to drop a link. I will find it later. I don't want to ruin the theme, but dynamic time warping is a new paper from Edinburgh, and he's applying it to EMG, and we should apply it to EEG.
I agree.
Shouldn't let control labs have all the fun.
I agree. No, it's there are some low-hanging algorithmic approaches that can clean all this up, and we are not using them. And all I'm saying is the moment you go from raw EEG to frequency decomposed EEG, you've added an order of magnitude of complexity, interpretation, and like just knowledge that you need for it to go okay. There's nothing fundamentally awful about frequency decomposing, but there's a big barrier of knowledge to be able to understand what's happening, to choose the parameters, to work with the limitations that the timescales are going to impose, etc. So if you're doing your very first EEG project, let me just kind of offer a simple thing. Get a device like a Muse. Get a broadcaster like Bloomies, if you're a Windows or whatever, or you can use Muse LSL for Mac or Linux. Get a program like Unity and get the LSL plugin. From there, you can access the data that is coming from the EEG. With the case of Muse, the voltages that it gives are very fixed. Most of the readings from the Muse, yes, are going to be in the 800 to 1000 microvolts range. It's actually going to be more narrow than that, but it doesn't really matter. So the Muse is pretty reliable, 700 to 1000, let's just say most of your metrics are going to be off there. Also, like blinks are really easy to tell. You put this on, one blink, it's going to be a voltage drop of about 200 microvolts, and it's going to last half a second. So when you want to find a blink, you look for a time series where, your rolling threshold is 840 microvolts, and then your blink is going to be the period of time when it's at 640 microvolts. And then by the time it gets up to 750 or more, and it's recovering back to the 800, that the blink is almost over. So that is like the hello world of classifiers for EEG, right? Which is, I'm going to do a voltage threshold. It's device. Oh, sorry, please, yes. No. Okay, cool. No. I wasn't sure if you wanted to say something. All right, we're in agreement. So basically, you're gonna this way you can map a blink to a click. All right, and that's like a typical Unity project. My suggestion is just start with that, even if it's not exciting. Even if you're like, I don't want to click with my blinks, the process that you get through will not confuse you. And then you can build on it because you kind of have an understanding of where is my data, what am I doing with the data, and how is it responding in the game. The thing is, I was about to make a ridiculous statement. Many people want to read minds, apparently, from EEG.
I do it all the time.
Yes.
Not reading minds, make the ridiculous statements.
Well, sometimes you read minds too. I've seen it. In this case, I mean, like, we can all understand it would be interesting to be able to, that person is thinking this, that person's being dishonest, that person's being whatever. But with EEG, what I would like to kind of get you used to is EEG is great at distinguishing states. It is not great at telling you what is different about those states. That requires interpretation, analysis, modeling, questions and so on. Yeah, exactly. So let me give you a very concrete example, because this is something we ran through, and I'd like to, what happens when you go to classify emotion with EEG? Well, let me show you. We spent a few months on it. So this is the game emo data set. And this is really, really, really cool because these amazing researchers on July 9, 2020, published their entire data set for the world to use, all 2.6 gigabytes of it. And they have, they put on an EEG with 28 subjects. They had those subjects play 4 different games. And they felt that these games would evoke the emotion of boredom, the emotion of calm, the emotion of horror, and the emotion of funny, or let's say humor or mirth or whatever it is. I'm sure the psychologists have an exact word for it, and I'm sure that I don't know it. Okay, so this was...
Yeah, what do you call the emotion that's associated with I prepaid for COD Vanguard and it doesn't work? It can't connect to server? Is that
great sorrow?
Great sorrow. Okay, all right. Just Just checking. Just checking.
Oh no, Vanguard. So
Yeah.
so here they do, 4 or 5 minute runs, which actually we've messed with EEG, and what I can tell you is 3 minutes is the minimum. Anything north of that is enough to kind of distinguish. So even here, you can say, wow, 5 minutes, like they clearly picked a good time scale. So, okay, you're going to download a data set like this, or you're going to collect a data set like this, one way or the other. You grab an epoch, you grab the recordings, and so on. So the first thing is, this is like to give you an idea of what is actually happening, right? The steps involved in this is you collect the data, you grab some baselines. So first you're going to do like an eye closed baseline, then you're going to do an eye open baseline, then you're going to do the stimulant. So from that you get your raw EEG data, and then you need to pre-process it, and then you need to analyze it, then you need to classify it, and then that's going to like let you actually train on the data and see what accuracies you're getting. None of these steps are easy, and none of this is meant to intimidate you, but just understand that there is a lot of hidden complexity. There's a lot of things going on behind EEG. So the moment you go from raw, you have to add these pieces, or you're going to be adding these pieces because that's why you're processing it. And so you're getting into complex territory. Now, I think if you've done these types of projects before, you'll be able to kind of like navigate it fairly okay. But let's take a look at.
Sorry, what's SAM again?
I'm not sure. I think it's subject, like a survey, like subjective something or other.
Okay, like subjective, or subject affective, or maybe the A is affective or something.
Measure or something like that. Yeah.
That came up with the. I think the Toby job description is like cognitive affective researcher / affective, AFF.
Survey autobiography. Is that like just?
It might. Yeah, that might.
No, that's just different.
There's going to be a lot of SAM acronyms that.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So in this data set, this is what
it's hard to get. It's hard to get at internal states.
Yes.
Right. I mean, is the thing, and one of those reasons is we can't stimulate your sadness, state, right? We can stimulate a patch of the screen with colors or contrast, or we can do psychophysics, right? We don't have there's no emotion
here's Sam
button on you, and the best that we can do in terms of how these companies even come close to claiming any of this is usually by the what is called the affective picture data set, and so we can take a bunch of pictures that have negative and positive valence, or again, like they're trying to make this multidimensional, and so but let's remember that most of the studies that exist are using this one, I think it's called IADS data set, and it's something effective, something, or DS is
yeah. I know that there is one data set that everybody does ask for on Slack.
and that's why, and it's like you and there's like some weird copyright associated with this thing, and I will say, because this has come up with like the faces data set. Like everybody uses a particular face data set. The guy, I think his website is something like faceclassification.org or .com. Anyway, there's somebody who's come up with a data set that's free.
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah, it's this.
Everybody can download it, and I
This
bring
is
it up because well,
that.
there's that for sure, but and you can learn about some of the issues, but this guy's a French guy, and this has come up because I was I met with a student who's just graduated, would love to go to grad school, is doing some trying to do some EEG experiments with emotive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was asking whether he could do visual psychophysics. In other words, did he have a channel here, back of the head?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really clear that he did. But like the Muse, he had some channels that were here, right? And the cool thing is that you can you can get a good N170 here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And
What, behind the ears?
Behind the ears, yeah.
So like
I mean,
the TP9,
it's like
TP10
here.
electrodes for the Muse.
Yeah. I mean, so which is cool for Muse, right? For just their particular, weird electrode there. And so if you do rapid face presentation, you can do something that's akin to steady state visual evoked potentials, but with faces, right? And it's kind of like, or if you remember the what they do have is a data set, or like what who's the EEG notebook, the original EEG notebooks, French guy who works at Control Labs
Alexander
now.
Barchat?
Barachon. Yeah, I mean, like Barachon originally used this particular, a subset of this particular data set from this French site. Again, recommend it because it's free. But it's not this emotion one, right?
Okay.
That it's I want to say it's IADS, and again, like the reason to bring it up is that it's the closest thing, or actually I'm going to say effective picture data set. Okay, well, I'm seeing like the Oasis, introducing the Oasis open effective standardized image set. And I'm going to put this in too, just because, again, like what people have typically done previously is show you pictures of like kitten, I'm not saying this is a real picture, but like, puppy being beaten, like, oh, and then like,
right.
And that's literally all they've got.
Right.
And you can see how, like, you can see the difficulty certainly of doing that as kind of like event related. So then it's just like, well, I'm going to give you like puppy, kitty, you know, uh, um, you know, orangutan
Syria.
holding kitty.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and I'm going to give you 20 seconds of that. And then it's just like, horror, 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 horror. Uh, um, we understand why they want to say, well, that's how I get you in an effective state,
Right.
right? Does it? you know,
And what are we really measuring? Are we measuring the aggregate of me processing the picture plus whatever emotional response plus thinking to myself, oh, geez, I wish I hadn't signed up for this study now that I know what I'm actually getting. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but like really, like, but you're like, oh goodness, this isn't one of those fun ones. This is like, look at terrible things, right? And I'm here for a while, and I shouldn't fail out of it.
it's a fine line before Clockwork Orange,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're like, geez, I was hoping this would be a little more cheerful.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Like nobody's gonna start with Beethoven. Yeah.
right.
It's IAPS. Sorry, it's not DS. It's IAPS.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And here we go. Or certainly, for some reason, this is on UMass's site.
Yes. I'll put that on the. Yes.
Okay. Well, we've got multiple ones. And I just saw here. iMotions explains it. And this is I seem to remember when this came out, and this is good because this is giving you as you would expect from iMotions. So I don't know if we talked about this last week, but iMotions has been bought.
Really? No, I didn't hear about that. By who?
I want to say Real Eye.
I never got the sense iMotions was a small company. $50 million.
No, Smart Eye. So
what? What?
Because again, Google is a $1 trillion company.
Oh, Google's behind Smart Eye.
No. I'm just saying Google is a $1 trillion company because of advertising.
Yeah, but Smart Eye was like this tiny little startup with some cameras. I mean, maybe I got the wrong impression, but I'm like, where did they get $50 million to buy iMotions? But that's fine. I'm clearly wasn't up to date on the capital that Smart Eye has.
So like two weeks ago, Swissnex, which is the Swiss business development innovation group here in San Francisco, all the lots of countries have them. Swissnex did a startup, get 20 of our best startups, thing for Swiss companies. One of them was an eye tracking company, and I will get the name. But what was interesting about their particular little pitch deck was their who their competitors are, and like how big their competitors are, and Toby's big.
Oh, Toby is public in Sweden. Toby has 3,000 employees.
Big.
Toby is a large company, and that's actually why we have a good relationship with them, because we know that they're not about to get bought.
Well, I'm just guessing, but there's again, part of the reason that we had a financial crisis in 2007 is that there's a lot of money looking for a place to grow, right?
But this reminds me of the WorldCom buying every single telco in 2003 and then promptly going bankrupt, which like destroyed telcos for a very long time.
I mean, well, as not that I was somebody invested, but what was the name of not Juniper Networks, but well, Juniper didn't do. I mean, there's a lot of tech companies but
there was like At Home, there was
no,
PSINet, there was MCI.
the like Canadian equipment manufacturer for telco stuff.
It was U.S. Robotics,
Anyway,
but that was
he
a
got
U.S.
caught up
company. Yeah.
they got caught up in the WorldCom stuff too. Like I get what you're saying. I think in this case, like WorldCom and what the people behind it were trying to do was really monopolize. Like and
Yeah.
here I think it literally is like, hey, you know what? This technology adds value.
Yeah,
Like,
but what's amazing to me is, sorry, I did not know that this is a public Swedish. So this is now the second public Swedish company. I knew Tobii was public, but I didn't know that Smart Eye. They were founded in '99. They've been doing this for.
And
I
I
didn't
said to
get
the
it.
guy, I mean, I said to the Swiss guy, I was just like, so you're a startup, and you're going up against like Toby, and
Yeah,
I was like, what does your eye tracking do? Like,
this is incredible.
does it read minds?
How did you get?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, my immediate question was like, so what's different? I was
Right.
like, okay, your long throw. I was like, can you do better? Like I'm familiar with fMRI systems, and
Right.
those are long throw, right? Because we're doing, they're going off of mirrors and stuff, right? I mean, like our equipment's
Right.
potentially outside the scanner room, right?
Right. Right.
Like what are you doing? And there wasn't obvious, like wasn't obvious what it was.
Right.
Um, uh, except eye tracking does add value, right? And maybe if you've got kind of like a software stack, hardware software stack that's free, or
Mm-hmm.
like that is not based on anybody else's IP.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was enough to get a couple million euros, or no,
Right.
Swiss francs. They've kept their own money, right?
I will note that for a variety of reasons, you can access the Tobii gaze data, which isn't the full data for sure, but you can access the location on the screen where the person's looking, and there's a whole bunch of stuff you can do with that, right? Because really, the area of interest is a large part of the value of eye tracking. I mean, the other things you can get from that, you can calculate fixations and you can calculate,
Sure.
but like, yeah,
But it's important to remember that what eye motion, like the reason that, or I'll just say, Adam Gazzaley went with eye motions. Adam Gazzaley et al. In terms of the other, PIs, professors that are there working on different physiological measures, they went with eye motions because of all the other stuff, right? It was because like you were going to bring in these other measures too. Like
right,
I
right.
so I just want to say that, just because like uh I know you work more with Toby. Is Toby compatible with some physiological devices? Kind of
Well, it's
like
just the data stream, and that's really the one thing. Yeah, the one thing I was going to say is like we have so many people hacking on Muses, which are $200 EG, and that makes total sense to me. I have never heard of anybody hacking on a Tobii, which is a $200 eye tracker, and I'm
because
just,
they also make a 5K one.
well, yeah, but you can get the $200 version and hack on it the same way that you would a Muse, right? Like,
Absolutely. And again, like, check out Pygaze, which if this is meaningful, is right, is in this chat here.
right,
Uh, um, like you can get things out potentially from that Toby bar was like the Toby 4 or something. Was it
Yeah,
called?
4C. Yeah, the one at the Red Vic was
I'm
the
looking
4C.
for it on eBay.
Well, actually, no. They have a new eye tracker that's way fancier. This is the 5. It's metal aluminum housing. It's the same price, and it has. I can actually turn on.
Do we have? Oh, so yeah, it's 8:15. So we might actually close out Hack Night.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah,
before
it's
we
fine.
go, can
Mm-hmm.
we talk about some ways or some logistics? And again, I want to just say uh, the buzz-in review is going to be when it usually is, so January, February timeframe. Uh, um, we we could try and do something in person if we announced it early, right? And we advertised it widely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we could potentially do something
Yeah, it could
in
be like our
person
first.
and
You know. Yeah.
get an audience. Like so. For instance, this Swiss thing. I mean, they did control the numbers, but they might have had like 80 people.
Mm-hmm.
You got to space the chairs. I don't know if you necessarily. We don't need to serve food.
We get a big turnout at Buzz and Review, and then it doesn't translate into people that either show up in person or come to the hack nights. Not that it necessarily has to, but I think if we are going to go through all the trouble, we should have a better conversion path for what happens after.
Well, so again, we'll have a better conversion path if more people are willing to help.
Well, yeah, but like at the same time, some of that is just like an intentionality thing, right? Because every other time it's let's throw a big Buzz and Review. And then there isn't a clear, okay, 80 people are going to show, we're never going to see them again. Should we do anything with it? And it's just like, nah, it's just they showed up to Buzz and Review. And I think we should just have some way of like, okay, if you were interested enough to come to this, just so you know, here's our other events, here's stuff. And
Well,
we should get like a 5, 10, 20% conversion rate. It shouldn't be 0, is all I'm saying.
what worst case,
Mm-hmm.
what we should do is find out why those people showed up
Yeah,
and why they're not staying. I mean,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
like not to ask for a negative, but like what did they
Why
come
don't you
for?
come to our boring meetings when you're
Why?
coming to this one?
Yeah. Why don't you take 3 hours out of your busy,
It's hard
extra
to
time?
understand. Why does no one show up? I mean, this is such good footage.
I'm
We
glad we
have a
can
few.
answer
We have
our
a few very dedicated and motivated people that come every week.
I'm glad we
Salute.
can answer our own questions in real time. Yeah.
Yes, full credit. You're basically here to watch a few blowhards every week. That's all we've got. That's all we've got.
But I mean, it's a nice focused event where,
Right.
which is information rich, right? So it does bring in people.
Mm-hmm.
It's on us to get more information from them in terms of, what would bring them back again.
Right.
Do they need to see? Do we need to have more startup presentations?
Right.
Do we need to do something like I potentially when we first met in the sense of like, was it at Will's
Mm-hmm.
Indiegogo
Mm-hmm.
event?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. That's where I first. That was sort of catering to startups, and I felt like I was welcome to attend that event because I was sort of like on the fringes, and I could tell that it was more academic. But I was like, okay, if this is for startups, then presumably it's fine to show up there.
Yeah, but I think you were helping Marion get her demo going or
Yeah, I was trying to.
we had some there were some Muse issues. There were some Muse LSL issues. It's a good thing that some things have never changed.
Well, I remember it was a difficult. Like you couldn't run more than a few instances of Muse IO because back then those were the Muse IO days, and like Graham and then if you remember the firmware modes on the Muse 2014 and all that nonsense.
Luckily, I do not. Um,
It was,
I
it was a
was
trip.
there, to give the research, research
Hey,
grade opinion,
yes,
or and anyway, it, those are things that we could do more.
right.
I was certainly thinking of doing uh, let's see where they are now. So like going back over the archives, right, and seeing who's presented, who's come to Hack Night to talk about their startup, and then be
Right.
like, let's it's been a year or so.
It's been 4 years since the Neurable
Let
demo.
okay, okay. So
They actually the Indiegogo Neurable demo is trippy. It's on YouTube.
is
Were
it?
you in the audience that day?
Yeah, yeah. Because
Let me send you the link. Yeah.
okay, good. Because we've had think, right, with a Y,
Mm-hmm.
right, with a Y and a C, right. So the vagal nerve patch,
Yes.
right, the what was the name of the cranial nerve patch too, that was like, it's like calm, but it's I'm thinking of, I'm thinking of the uh, um, focus calm is from the Brainco, um, but there's it's the Australian who's now in the Berkeley incubator.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, who else? Well, I
Well,
mean,
I
I
actually
wanted
hold
to.
on. They didn't present, but you know which projects I would love to revisit? Do you remember Pierre and Pierre? The one was Ukrainian, one was I think Chilean or South American, um, and they were working on this project with the electrostim for the foot drop. Do you remember? And they applied for like a Toyota grant. They were actually the finalists, and they lost to like this one other project. And I think that they actually have started a company now and are soliciting funding and all this other stuff. So I find it odd that we haven't heard from them because, like,
Okay.
they're, I don't know, they're the garage alumni. And I mean, we should definitely have Pierre and
Oh, okay.
Pierre
Are
back.
they?
Yeah.
They're garage alumni. Well, then hell yeah.
Well, they're in Washington State. They're in Seattle, something or other. And when I say alumni, I don't know if they fully finished graduating, but they seem to be focusing on this venture.
We just meant garage alumni.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so I just want to go back in the chat history, and say just a little something about a couple of things I dropped in that are
Mm-hmm.
definitely blasts from the past, that we can catch up on, which is BitBrain. So BitBrain announced its the winners. Uh, uh, and okay, I'm not seeing where I dropped BitBrain in.
It was a little further back. We've spammed a lot of links.
We have, oh wow, was it really before? Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, so if anybody goes back far enough, you can see the BitBrain, the call for research projects, and and yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, uh, oh, okay, so Bob Knight was topic one, looking establishing signatures of mind wandering. Um, that's cool. I mean, these are great. These are great.
Bob is really
Really great
connected.
researchers went after this stuff. So I was going to talk about Guillaume Dumas, here's a bunch of people from Malmo. Speaking of Malmo,
Right.
predicting neuropathic pain episodes and spinal cord injury, which is pretty impressive. Um, Zurich, uh, well, cybersecurity and BCI of driver assistance. Anyway, check out these because you got some really some top notch. I mean, some incredible researchers went after this, and the uh, the jury was okay. Well, look, I'm looking at the jury, and you know, Tiago Falk is one of those. Remember when a guy who was just about to join, you know, is just finishing in Tiago's lab?
Mm-hmm.
I think did we'll go through the archives and see who's presented and where are they now, because there's good stuff there. Can you close the door? Yeah, sorry. Um, sorry, everyone. Dodo, here, come. Sorry. Um, anyway, there's some good good links. Ooh, did I lose you there?
No, I just turned off the camera for a second.
Oh, okay.
I'm just
Good.
moving
I thought
around.
maybe-
Hold on. Wait, no, I turned off your video. That's hilarious. Instead of turning the
Okay.
opposite of what I was hoping for.
No. It was yeah. So I just want to say that I didn't know if everybody was had covered, if we'd covered all the winners of that. Um, um, this makes me want to raise the point that OpenBCI is hiring. I don't know if you saw that, but OpenBCI announced like I think 3 new positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about the fact that who was doing the drivers in Moscow?
Andre, Brainflow.
Brainflow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you know they hired Brainflow developer,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's new positions, but BitBrain is not supported or wasn't supported at the time by Brainflow. There's another company that's BrainBit, right? That I think is Russian, and that's why that one's supported. So I wanted to just also going back get at the company that so this 2i2c.org, right? I think we can have them give us a customized Jupyter lab that they'll support, right? Because finally we can leverage the fact that NeuroTechX is a nonprofit.
Yes. Yeah. Have they finished the process of that?
Well, not in the States.
Okay.
Or did they not? I mean, I believe they finished it in Canada because people like Chris were on the board.
Right.
You know, like being one of the requirements of being a real nonprofit, as opposed to just saying that you're one. You know, but I can't say this enough, and just in terms of I really do think we could get, and this kind of relates to how do we turn people showing up for Buzz and Review into people coming back because we're adding, because of some added value.
My suggestion is have a project that they can participate in without having any technical expertise that starts right after.
What he said, plus to some, it's a software project. but data is really helpful.
Yes, and so you can be the data volunteer, right? Exactly.
Well, that like our lab, I mean, our Jupyter server could have all of that data already attached, and even better, data munged. You know,
Oh yes, ready to
like
go. Mm-hmm.
we can have as you know, as a separate project, if you want to work on data munging and you know, the things you'll probably do as a data engineer, data scientist more than anything else, right?
Right.
And it does seem like a good time to mention Gail's new project at Unria, which is called Dirty Data, which I really hope is supposed to be a play on Dirty Dancing. Um,
What about the
uh,
Dirty Diana song from Michael Jackson?
well, maybe, but so statistic, uh, unless you're doing something like um, he's hiring, by the way. So if you're interested in working with one of the core developers of scikit-learn, at Dirty Data is the project, and yeah, it's like as it says, statistical learning on non-curated data, which is much harder,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so you know, it's easy to access the raw data if you really want to clean it up yourself. But we could do a hell of a lot more if we had a server ready
Right.
with examples
And some
of
notebooks you just run.
cleaned
Mm-hmm.
up data and scripts. Like, remember the whole idea of Narika was have that competition, and then have it was like Sydney and it was like University of Sydney was like there was a first and second place winner, and then the third place was like much further down,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if I remember right, and I'm forgive me if I'm not remembering the order, and I'm not going to look it up because we're going to check my memory. There was a winner, but then there was a really close winner, but that only used like 2 channels.
Yeah. There was the winner used like 30.
Or
The
like
second place was
16 or
yeah.
20
Sorry.
or whatever they had, right? And I mean a slight subset,
Right.
right? Because there were missing channels in some of those data sets. But
Mm-hmm.
then the second place winner, which was pretty close on the
Right.
overall metric, but it used 3 channels,
And
right?
this is one of those long-standing things that you and I have discussed at length over the many years that yes, it makes sense to use 32, 64, 128, 256 channel for a research grade EEG. If you're going through all the trouble of doing the research, the subject, whatever, get the highest quality you can. But when you're
Well,
doing analysis and
if
classification,
yeah, I mean, or if I mean, like essentially, if you're John Griffiths and your specialty is whole brain,
right,
neuronal modeling,
right,
right?
of course.
Then you want 256 or 512 channels.
Exactly, exactly. But if you're
Uh,
just trying to classify something, some state,
yeah.
it could easily be that 2 or 3 representative channels are a lot easier for a network to train on because it's not getting duplicate data and it can assign the weights really efficiently. And it's just cool that, we can talk about it at length here, but here somebody proved it. What is the difference between 16 and 2, 3 channels when it comes to classification accuracy? Basically nil.
So by the way, I'm just looking at that video. Who's Puzzle Box?
I think that was somehow like some company that was involved with whatever and uploaded it.
What I just want to also point out that the CEO of Neurable just did a TEDx.
Yes, he did, and it's going to get posted. Yep. And
Oh, it's not
Connor
posted yet?
was no, the video hasn't been posted. And Connor did a presentation at AWE.
Really?
Yeah, Connor pitched the Galia to Augmented World Expo. So like the big Valve OpenBCI announcement happened a few days ago, like a day or two ago. And good old Connor Russamano is on stage showing slides, and there's a photo from OpenBCI Twitter showing a screenshot of Connor up there doing his demo.
Awesome. I'm just seeing if I can get.
If you just go to OpenBCI Twitter, I think it's like the latest tweet.
Yeah. I was just seeing if there's. I wanted to see the. Oh, look at this! OpenBCI plus cgrids. That's nice. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot to love about cgrids. I just want to throw that picture in. Yeah, you don't necessarily need the other stuff. But I'll try and find those job posts. I mean, are these jobs already on the jobs board at NeuroTechSF? No, TechX. Just see. If you haven't checked, I've posted a lot of job positions recently. So, oh wow, okay. Ruin Labs is doing cool stuff. Okay, maybe I should check this. Okay, well, I posted the new Alto Neuroscience. Anybody is interested in TMS. Speaking of former presentations, mm-hmm. the Baltimore, the applied, what's it called? Applied Physics Lab. Mm-hmm. Remember, like it was like a near infrared, but like a new sensor. Mm-hmm. Did we ever was it like I don't know, MedX or right. It was like. But yeah, I am seeing November 11th, senior electrical engineer, senior mechanical engineer, OpenBCI. Right. Ooh. Oh, Jyoti. So hopefully, Jyoti or somebody from Jyoti's lab will come and talk. Mm-hmm. That would be cool. Software engineer, yeah, OpenBCI. That's cool. Even better, zebrafish neuroscience. We should all be working on fish. Yeah, okay. I should check the job board more. What else can we cover in 20 minutes? What's Evolution Devices? Sorry.
That's the foot drop startup that Pierre and Pierre took to the Toyota Mobility Foundation finals.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So
that's cool. Has Jenny from the company that had the wrist haptic devices.
Oh no, Empatica was a sensor, not Control Labs was I know what you mean. The it was the one, the vibration of sound into
Eagleman's.
Was it called Hum? No, that's not it.
But thank you. That's the name of the TDCS device.
Okay.
Hum is the Berkeley-based TDCS device.
Okay. We're rattling around. Sorry. I'm getting through every startup that I can remember.
Yeah, No. That was good. That was good. Thank you for jogging my memory on that. Cool stuff on fall detection. I'm really interested. One of the companies, NeuroNexus companies that I mentored, was doing a really cool balance a balance detection device. I mean, it was a balance assessment plus like training that it for those not aware, it's interesting because it's balance and gait can be balance and gait changes can be leading indicators in dementia. um, and yeah, neosensory, thank you. Yeah, neosensory buzz. And they've got a uh, community research opportunity. Neosensory. So, oh, community research program. I just want to throw that in.
I have to say, I just went on the Neosensory webpage and I saw a different product than I ever saw before. Previously, they just had the haptic sound awareness thing. Now they have a tinnitus. I just have, I don't remember that as part of the presentation. So that sounds like a new.
That's potentially huge.
Oh, tell me about it. Holy mo! That's why I was just like doing a double take. Like, what?
I don't know how much people track, how big certain problems are.
Oh, that one's huge.
How big and how previously intractable.
Right.
Um,
I think they would make billions if their treatment works for that.
well, I already know. I know somebody I want to. I know someone who struggles with tinnitus, and would be like would jump on this, even if it's just to come back and tell us
It didn't.
what it's done.
I know one person that reported that they suffered from tinnitus, and it sounded like it was deeply. It was affecting their life.
Right.
Like in a negative way. Like it was something that they really wanted to resolve.
So many people. I mean, it's not just a running joke in Archer. Most of my references are from Archer, but tinnitus is real, people.
Yeah, but I just haptic stimulus. What? Okay, let me just.
Again,
patented wristband with 4 motors, full access to mobile app, 2 video consultations, chat support, free shipping, and $250 a month for 2 months. Fair enough. That's and you have to. You get it? Okay, so $500. I don't know if you get to keep the device or not. But that's actually, I don't know. That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Big deal. Big deal. Anyway.
Yeah, if it solves your stuff, do you care? Yeah.
Jenny used to join us pretty regularly because I think we're at a decent time for her. It's like her morning in New Zealand.
Yes.
And
this works well for all.
For
China, yeah, anywhere in Asia Pacific. I remember when I was working, like 5:30 p.m. is like 9 a.m. in Japan or something like that.
Gotcha. So if you are just joining us, feel free. If you've got any last minute questions, please drop them in the chat because we got about 15 minutes here. And anyway, or again, please sign up on Slack, and because I was going to suggest. I don't know if you already do this, Alex, but uh, on the Saturday morning lab meeting that I attend, we kind of cover what's been posted on Slack, and for the sorry, and here, can you shut me off?
Sure, I can mute you for a second. Okay. Yes. Yeah, yeah, the toggle mic, that's the button. You got it. You got it.
Such an annoying dog.
It's all right. So what I do is I'll go through Slack and I'll pick out anything that I think will be interesting, in the sense of, like, if it's a question that I think other people would want the answer to, or if it's a topic that seems to reoccur, or if it's like news or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes we have a mixed audience. We have kind of like two groups. We have complete people, beginners, and we have knowledgeable, kind of like people that are in university and studying this stuff and whatever. And I just try to strike the balance between, like, most of the conversations on Slack are only going to make sense to people that are already doing it. Not to say that that means we shouldn't feature them, but I'm just trying to find, like, the right balance of not all technical stuff, but like a good mix. I don't know. That's my attempt.
Sure. No. I mean, absolutely. And, uh, and I'm going to be somewhat biased towards some things that I've posted.
But please, you're our academia representative, and
Well,
that's what.
not really, but academia related, or these are things that are coming out in journals.
Mm-hmm.
So combing the academic literature for hopefully, like.
Can I ask you a question, Morgan? If we have a running thing where people can submit one paper for you to dive into on the hack night for like a half hour, would you be comfortable? I mean, obviously, some weeks you might not make it, or we might not have. You know what I'm trying to say?
But like we did with the photobiomodulation,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Certainly happy to do that. Or it's like you're gonna just kind of get train of thought, but it's train of thought in picking apart a paper.
Yes.
And and as someone, or it was interesting because again, sometimes Slack we get some experts that chime in on stuff on Slack that aren't going to be able to join us. So on this particular paper that was an electrode reference, William Croft chimed in, who has been a consultant for a number of companies, but definitely OpenBCI, with oh, this looks like something that Cognomics did, and if again, like, these are the kinds of discussions that I hope we have more on Slack, or, well, I hope we have on Discord. So if you don't, you when you register with NeuroTechX, you get on Slack, and then please send me a message so that I can send you an invite for Discord, so that our conversation, that we don't lose our conversational history. It is official NeuroTechX Discord server. We just don't want to lose the things that people post. And currently, Discord doesn't throw away our messages. Well, not that Slack throws them away. They just hold them hostage for money. So I guess kidnapping. And there were some others. I mean, I hope somebody signed up for the cognitive modeling course. I just can't take the. I just won't be able to do it. I hope they'll let us see the videos after. But I definitely want to follow up. We're going to have those guys back and talk about what was presented. I know that there's some other stuff that we go back and like I posted, Montreal AI and Neuroscience meeting registration is open. If you're not following that meeting, please do, because if nothing else, check the speakers that they're getting, and because those are people whose papers you're going to want to check out. That was this weekend. What else? And trying to think. Oh, maybe Ender. I think I posted some other stuff in random. Just because I wasn't quite. I didn't want to put everything onto. Is it on random? Yeah, I mean the so has anybody seen any new presentations from Open Water?
I think the VR space seems to be exploding in terms of devices right now, and the fact that Valve is really pushing the combo, GSR, HRV, eye tracking, and EEG, and that OpenBCI is also featuring it. The fact that the new HP OmniStep G2 has HRV face cam for valence and emotion and all that other stuff that we were talking about, because it actually has your mouth, so it can get smiles and frowns and all that other stuff. And then it's got eye tracking, so it's got cognitive load. It doesn't have EEG. That's just those two devices right now. There's a handful of other ones that also have sensors that are coming on the market. So I think it's very interesting that, yes, the traditional markets with the dedicated research devices still exist, whatever, but somehow OpenBCI is at the forefront of this transition to integrated devices, and then HP also created this all-in-one toolkit, and it doesn't sound like they're the only two. It sounds like there's actually other companies that are going to pursue the same path, which is really fascinating. I mean, getting sensors onto people is such a struggle, but with these devices, we're talking about tens of thousands or potentially hundreds of thousands of people that have these sensors. I think if we're talking about Muse, I have no insight into, but what, 50,000, 100,000, probably not a ridiculous number. Well, maybe even into more of that because of the meditation use case, which is fairly widespread. But certainly there's no other sensor that I can think of in the last few years that had anywhere near the chance of this level of market penetration that these new VR combo devices are going to get.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just seeing a couple of the other things that I posted are mainly just opportunities for people to,
Sure.
Demonstrate technology or opportunities to get access to, single board computers and other things that you might use. Nothing, Johnson & Johnson Innovation Labs, and Microsoft and Seed, the triple E for Seed, that makes interesting.
I did want to mention one thing about Open Water, though, which is I think they announced a partnership with Kernel. I was really surprised by that announcement. And
I'm looking at their website and I'm not seeing any new press since 2020.
like they had a shared presentation with Brian Johnson and Mary Lou Jepson.
I saw that at the Milken Institute.
Right.
And so Milken Institute is an interesting, well, again,
But
just
but it's
showing
not
my
a
age.
partnership.
I'm showing my age by knowing who Michael Milken is. But yeah.
Yeah, you're right. No, I'm sorry. I was mistaken. There is no partnership. It was just a joint presentation.
I think it was just a you know, these are, here are two companies doing interesting things. But okay, so we're wrapping up. But well, let's see if we can get any update from Open Water.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
And they're really, you know, for those not familiar, the MEG system for kernel came out, and again, there's some amazing innovations in kernel's equipment over what had been research grade FNIRS, even if some of it was mechanical and super expensive, right? So even though like kernel flow was being offered at 5K or something, like this is a device that costs more than 5K. And it's the business model where kernel gets your data, or you process the data in kernel's cloud.
And the user authorizes you to see their data and can revoke that. Can you, I know we don't have time, but as a researcher, what happens if a user in your data set revokes access to their data after the fact?
So it is something that you're supposed to allow. And I mean, like let's just say that research is trying to catch up with this.
Yeah.
And in Europe in particular, because of GDPR,
right, or whatever.
Yeah, that you're obligated to think about things like that. In addition, and this has come up for the Oxford Adolescent Psychiatry Unit, because they didn't get permission from the subjects to share the data to other organizations who maintain good data safekeeping practices.
Right.
They were not able to contribute their data to Enigma, which is a global. They weren't able to contribute all of their data to Enigma, which is this global data, not harmonization, but we can get better results if we pool our data efforts. And so Paul Thompson runs this down at USC in LA. Heads it, but it's really a truly global, monumental effort, which includes genetics as well as medical imaging. And yeah, it's like those issues are yeah. So this has come up with EEG notebooks in the sense of like, what are we saying to people? At least previously, IEEE Brain was going to keep the data, or IEEE's data port was going to keep the data. And yeah, you should be allowed. I mean, this comes up with Google in general, right?
Sure.
Like, I should be allowed to erase myself from the internet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah, I recently went through the exercise. California did that law where you can request from any company that you do business with, like the last 12 months of everything they have on you. And so, of course, I did it because I'm an InfoSec person, and I was really interested to see like what data format they have, well, how often, and whatever. Um,
and that's what is amazing, right? Is that it's one thing to request this or legislate it. It's another thing for companies to put together some sort of feasible uh, pipeline for making it happen.
so I got like a 20-page thing back with everything, and you can see it was just cut and paste stuff from all their systems, and someone manually did it, and I was like, holy Moses. But yeah, I don't know. So they complied with the law, and ultimately I wanted to know the nature of it. And it turns out that what basically they have every single communication, every single entry and exit out of their web page, and then basically on the email side, whether I ever clicked it or not, whether I read it. And so it's I know that because I used to work for them, the email marketing companies are very good at figuring out what's getting delivered to the inbox, and they have to do that because they don't want to deliver spam and they don't want to, right?
Absolutely. I mean, all of these things are yeah, like
But like,
honestly make
but like if you read
sense.
an email, the company that sent it to you 100% knows that you did, and they knows when they sent it to you and when you clicked it, and all kinds of interesting stuff. Um,
Yeah. Uh, 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 and well, anyway, it's 9 o'clock, and I know I'm starting to keep up kids upstairs. So, um, Alex, it's been a pleasure.
as
I don't
always,
know
Morgan.
if who's with us still.
We still
Um,
have 5 folks. The folks that close us out: Itamar, JM, Fang, and Kritarth.
great,
Saw it
great.
through all the way to the end. So Kritarth, next week I'll try to have some crown data for you to look at and show you some examples from the portal and collected through Lab Recorder, the thing that I showed today. So hopefully that can. Sorry.
No, no. I was going to say I'll give the guys on Reddit a better heads up
Yeah,
than this morning, and I honestly don't know what time zone they're in.
we'll see them when we see them. It'll be lovely.
There's no reason I shouldn't assume that anybody who's on Reddit is in San Francisco.
No, it's cool. I mean, it's wonderful that there's a community there, and I'm sure we'll find a time to chat with them and meet with
But
them.
I've said it before, is that if you want to find out about uh, um, how people are uh, using TDCS clinically,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is checking out Reddit TDCS is a great way, because most of the activity is I'm I'm doing this for insomnia, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing this for and I'm using this configuration of and anodal
That's another. We have to set up a way that someone can buy a Muse S, and we give them a way to record their sleep and run it through sleep staging script. And if we can put that on the Jupyter thing that you're talking about, that would be even better, because then there's no complicated nothing. Just take my
well,
CSV, dump it in there.
well, honestly, that almost sounds more like, and again, this
Mm-hmm.
is something that won't cost us anything,
Right.
and it's just us being good members of their community, which is Open Humans, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
so Open Humans is all about getting you access, especially if the device manufacturer isn't necessarily forthcoming. How do we make it easy for you to access your own data,
Mm-hmm.
push it to Open Humans and their Jupyter lab, their Jupyter hub, um, and creating visualization off of that.
Yeah,
And I want to just say that I want to get back to doing my spectrogram, which is to parallel uh, um, my connectome, right?
hmm
So we can't all get an MRI of ourselves every day, but we can have an EEG of ourselves every day,
hmm
right? This isn't done, right? But if you own one of these devices, right, you could be collecting just a 5 minute or 6 minutes, 3 minute on off, eyes closed, eyes open, uh, um, uploading it to Open Humans, right? And then what we're actually looking at is a joint time frequency plot of your potentially changing uh, um, you're changing spectrogram, right? Or you're changing uh, 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 power spectrum,
hmm
right? Because tracking those kinds of changes, uh, we don't have any data like that, and
And it's very
and
important.
uh, uh, things, especially like slow changes over weeks or months, could be fascinating information for researchers,
hmm
and honestly super easy to collect and super easy to process because
Yeah, but
again.
like, I totally agree. And the open humans for the spicy challenge and the whatever. But like, we also, I have to say, like, the epilepsy challenge, we got ambitious, and the complexity meant we never did anything.
I,
So
that's why I like this,
I
and
agree.
and and I like this too because it gets at one of the things that I talked about today with the startup in Montreal, where a change in your peak alpha frequency is a leading indicator of dementia, right?
We always go with pathologies. Is there any way we can make it good news for people?
But here's the thing, right? Is that and this is what I've said in psychiatry before, which is if we don't collect baseline data from kids, right, then we have to wait until you're sick.
It's true.
And if we wait until you're sick, interventions are less effective,
Right.
right? So we've learned like autism has changed the game in neurology, okay? In that they're like heavy pushing for baseline testing that doesn't involve asking a like verbal self-report,
No,
right?
I completely agree.
Psychiatry should have tests that aren't verbal self-report
Yes.
and are mandated at 7 or 10, right? It should be like your auditory you get an if there's any question if you're having trouble hearing,
Right.
then you get an auditory evoked potential exam,
hmm
and it's super low channel count, and it's super accurate, right? And it's just like, hey, we can check this nerve conduction, or well, no, we can check this neural response, this basic neural response, uh, um, and we could do the same thing. Like neurodevelopmental psychiatry, maybe it's a little more questionable, but these are the kinds of things that John and I are super interested in talking about in terms of like, would an auditory evoked potential give us some information that could be valuable in potentially only identifying high risk, and then directing high risk individuals towards some sort of intervention that then was shown with like randomized control trials that reduced the numbers of conversions to psychosis, for instance, right? So this is the dream, is that we can prevent mental illness by early intervention. Right?
And I agree. Let's have a path so people can buy a $400 device and they can look at their sleep data without worrying that we're going to predict their dementia. That's the only.
I mean, and that's the beauty of this, is that the peak alpha shift can be seen. You don't need super fancy equipment to do this. Now maybe if we see if you're collecting this kind of baseline data, we see a shift, we can now refer you for a follow-up, much
It's not
more
good news.
expensive.
It's not. Those, you're not going to get help though. It's I get it. I'm just saying, let's not at first intimidate people with dementia. Is the only. Let's get the sleep staging. Yeah. Let's get 5 people to do sleep data.
So without connecting it to clinical things,
right.
My connectome as a project has nothing to do with clinical diagnosis. My connectome was all about finding ultra low frequency changes in brain data, right? And he kept a pretty good track of what he was eating those days, like a depression inventory. He was trying to have some metrics that he could then, I think he was getting a blood draw, maybe like a couple of things. It would be like, again, like this data doesn't exist in the sense that like this could be super, super valuable tracking of normal fluctuations in power spectra. So without going on, and then we'll continue this discussion.
Yes, and I totally agree with you. I just think if we can get people are fascinated by sleep quality, because if you can increase it, you kind of increase your ability to do things. Anyway, I won't.
And if we can do interventions that allow you to sleep better,
yes,
there's probably nothing better that we could do to improve your mental health.
Yes, and your long term and your happiness, and it's a life-changing thing to improve someone's sleep quality. So I'm super passionate about the project. Let's make this our next SF thing. I mean, to whatever extent we can, but I think it'd be fun to work on it for a bit.
Yeah, I want to get one of those muses.
Me too. I'm looking for an excuse, so we got to start the project. All right. Well, hopefully see you next week, Morgan.
Definitely.
See everyone else. Thank you all for attending. It was lovely having everyone. I'll be reaching out on Slack to ask for questions, but this chat stays up after the thing. If you want to throw any comments or ask for anything for next week or anything like that, you can come back to this link anytime, type stuff in. I'll check it before the next call, and if I see anything, happy to address it.
Take care.
See you all next week. Thank you so much, Morgan. It's been a lovely week. Talk to you all. Take care.